there is ROI, goodwill. It's just maybe not as A to B as you would transactional.
Every piece of advertising that you do should have analytics attached with like, what's the ROI here? Some of it is just it's non-quantifiable ROI, which is like that brand or that goodwill that you're doing for the community.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Matt Foster. This is Defining Success with Matt Foster. This is my good friend Billy here. Super excited to sit down. Always look forward to these kind of conversations. Somebody like Billy who's had a lot of experience, different fields, just a wealth of knowledge, fun guy to be around. We've been friends for years. This should be a really enjoyable conversation that you guys should be able to not only be inspired by, but actually have actionable tips to apply to your own life. So starting out today, Billy, I appreciate you being here with me and, getting this thing rolling.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me, man. I feel honored to be here.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So since we know each other so well, there's a lot of different ways that I could take this conversation, but starting off in the beginning, I'd like to start actually where Billy is at today. Talk a little bit about what you're up to today, what you have going on, maybe a little bit of business, a little bit of personal. Where is Billy at 2023? What are you doing, man?
Yeah, well, like I said, man, honored to be here. Appreciate it, man. It's exciting to be on your podcast now instead of being on mine.
Yes.
So my name is Billy Anderson, entrepreneur. I currently operate a marketing agency called the Level Up Group.
Yeah.
And we specialize working with food and beverage companies. So whether it be restaurants, direct to consumer, bars, restaurants, alcohol brands, it's really what we work in. We'll get into my story, but really I have a pretty long experience line in the food industry. And so, yeah, that's what we're focused on right now, currently operating that. Also a partner in a couple different companies, and so all in the food and beverage space. So really that's kind of where I planted my flag, and our goal is really just to help brands stand out. Food is something that we all consume, right? Same thing with beverages. Like, you need it to survive, but how do you make your food different than everybody else's food? Because it's all food. So what makes your brand unique and stand out? And I think a lot of times in food we don't focus on brand, and so we really wanted to incorporate the branding that comes in with e-commerce and all of that, and really bring that to a lot of restaurants and help them create an identity and those unique differentiators that make them stand out from all the other food businesses that are out there. So that's what I currently do. Also, just recently, going in the life part, just recently got engaged to an incredible woman.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. You were one of the first to know that it was going to be happening. And just an absolutely incredible woman that is changing my life. And I stand by it that the right partner in life can really position you in so many ways. And, she's my motivation. She's my inspiration. She's my partner in crime. And so very honored and blessed to be, spending the rest of my life with her. But I'm sure we'll get into many more areas of my life and the different parts of it. But yeah, that's pretty much what's, 2023 it looks like. Our agency is called the Level Up Group, and I really stand by the always leveling up. And I think that even in moments of challenge, there's always an opportunity to get better and to grow and to level up. And so that's really, who I am, what I stand by. And so as we get through today, you'll learn, hopefully everybody here will learn a lot about how I've continued to level up in my life, and at even those inflection points where it's like, change is going to come. That's the opportunity to grow and to level up in life. And so I'm excited to get into all that today.
That's exciting, man. And I will give a testament to Billy, guys, that ever since I've known him, his whole kind of mantra of leveling up, I think the biggest thing about speakers that we connect to is congruence between what they say and how they live their lives. So without a doubt, not just because he's my friend, but I know Billy is a man that has lived in congruence. We all have our ups and downs, but when you live in that congruence, there is always a path forward. To back up what you were saying about food being important and the story behind that and the marketing and kind of the sexiness that is food a little bit, for the audience, that's how Billy and I, that's how we actually first met. So in Billy's first food company, I actually came in to get some food, and he happened to be working behind the counter, and that's how we originally connected. I think we had originally been connected on social, respected each other, had a lot of love for what we were doing, kind of, throwing up the clapping emoji and everything else. But finally meeting in person, it was just like clicking, when you meet your people. So food kind of tends to be a place where family is formed around, stories are formed around, friendships are formed over. And the fact that you guys are focusing on food is really cool because, a lot of people will tend to focus on different sizes of business, but actually like picking a lane that you are focusing on, that you have so many years of experience on, and what you can offer to these restaurants and e-commerce food brands and what they're trying to bring to the consumer, help create that story and pull it to the viewership. So speaking of food, correct me if I'm wrong, one of your very first jobs was actual food. Back in the day, you were hitting the fryers in the back of
A donut shop. Yeah. Well, it was my first job. I was 9 years old. That was my first job.
Okay.
People always get blown away. Like, why were you working at 9? Like I was a tall kid.
Yeah.
And they knew me since before I was born. Actually, my parents, they had immigrated here from Cambodia.
Okay.
And if you know anything about the donut culture, it's really built on the back of Cambodian immigrants.
Yes.
And especially during the genocide there. Great documentary, The Donut King. Definitely suggest you watching that. It's a great story of just perseverance and the American dream.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah,
Check it out.
It's great. And like you see the lineage of donuts, like even some of the big brands that you see on social media, like DK Donuts and stuff like that, is all built on the back of like this gentleman who immigrated here. And so anyways, incredible couple that owned it, and still the owner of it there's many lessons that I learned from him as a 9, 10, 12-year-old that have stuck with me today. And so, yeah, my first job was working at a donut shop. I used to open the donut shop at 5 o'clock in the morning. Parents would drop me off at 4:30 in the morning. I think as a 9-year-old, like it's crazy. So I got to learn a lot about the food industry at a very early age.
What's a memorable moment from the donut shop? I mean, starting at 9 years old, the excitement, oh man, probably like free donuts, right?
Yeah.
On a regular basis.
The first thought was like, damn, I got to eat all the donuts.
Yeah. One, how long did it take to get tired of donuts? And then 2, any kind of funny stories or memorable moments from your first job from the donut shop?
I think, so I still love donuts to this day. What's funny though, is I loved donuts as a kid. Like, like I'd eat a donut. But like then when I did bodybuilding, when I couldn't have donuts, like I built up like this crazy addiction to like I can smash down a dozen if I want to. Now I don't. Let's preference. It's not a regular occurrence, but there has been a couple times. So still not tired of donuts. I think one of the most memorable things was so the owner of the establishment, he no longer owns the business. They've sold it since.
Yeah.
He owns a couple other businesses now. And he taught me the importance of building connection with your customers.
Yeah.
And I think this was, I was 9 years old. I'm 35 now. So, was that 19 years ago, this lesson was learned. And it's so funny because that was long before social media, long before the concept of building community was really like this mainstream like concept in business. And he taught me the importance of building relationships and more importantly, remembering those things. I mean, this guy, like I could see him today. I haven't seen him in person in probably 9 or 10 years. And he could tell me everything about that he remembers from 9 or 10 years ago.
From the last time that he met.
I mean, customers would come in and he'd be like, how's little Susie doing? She's probably a freshman or sophomore now in high school. And people always felt like he knew them. And he really did. He genuinely knew things about people. And I think that was the first instinct of like taking care of your customers. And that was a lesson that was learned so many times there. He didn't work at that particular location that much because they had multiple locations. But every time he'd come in, he'd be like, give him a free donut. Like, like they come in all the time, like give him a free donut. And like, there was a lot of that, like giving him an extra free donut, especially in the later part of the day when, at that time, like we threw coffee out at like 12:30 because nobody drank coffee in the afternoon. Obviously Starbucks revolutionized how we consume coffee. But, he would be like, there's nothing wrong with giving that donut because they're going to come back 10 times over because they knew we cared.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of learning that the importance of caring for your customers. Don't take advantage of them just because they're coming in. Like actually give them more because they're regulars, they're loyal customers. Like really treat those loyal customers very closely. And key still to this day, if there's somebody that was a original member of that donut shop, he will attend their funeral if they pass away.
Oh, wow.
He'll attend weddings. I mean, this guy is still active in those people, and they're not his customers anymore, but he built a true relationship with them, authentic relationship. And so I think authentic customer service is really what I learned. And I mean, You were obviously a customer of GoFresh when I owned it, and wow, customer service was. We always said we want to give people a wow experience. We want people to leave, wow, that was a great experience, but it had to be authentic. We didn't want just that corny, like, hey, how's it going? And then as soon as they walked out the door, back to miserable. Like, it's really about creating a great customer experience. And even in a donut shop, it was a very old donut shop, it was really about creating that experience for people. And experience doesn't come in just the form of having a beautiful restaurant that has great music and all this great ambiance. It can be through just the service, or there's so many different things that lead to a great experience. And I think it's really important understanding what that is and then over delivering on it. And so for him, it was about building that connection and making people feel like he knew them in every opportunity.
Yeah. I think there's a few really great points to pull from there. I think Alex Hormozy says something along the lines of, if only your past clients were the only way you could have business today, how would you treat them? Right. And so I think the thing is, if you actually had to survive off of a small base of customers, a small local region, how would you treat everybody? And I think he was a testament to that. And I think another thing to pull from that, that's lacking a lot in business is coming from a loving place. Because when you actually remember people's names, remember what's going on, take a few seconds to take stock, especially if you're going to keep seeing these people. Remembering stuff about people is the highest form of love. And I've seen that in myself, when I can actually see someone and just pick up where we left off and go back into, like, hey, Joe's still working at Safeway and whatever else. I think that is a sign of love, because at the end of the day, you cared enough to remember. So I think what I'm hearing too is that, starting work at a young age is really great, because you just start picking up some of these lessons, taking responsibility for things, the process, the systems. But then in this first job, it was how to love your customer the right way, unreasonable hospitality, and that bridging that relationships creates a leverage on that business, like an invisible hand of goodwill that's just out there working for you. I think they say that 3 out of 10 people will tell other people how good you are, but 9 out of 10 people will tell people how bad you are. So kind of keeping that pendulum on the right side, and then focusing on people first. So that's an amazing spot. So
and let me sorry to cut you off. I'm gonna add one more, which is being a part of the community.
Yes.
And I think every business that I've ever owned, it's always been like, we're not just a business in the community, we're a business that's a part of the community.
Yes.
And he always made a point to be in the 4th of July parade or to sponsor a little league team. And those little things, those aren't necessarily like you can equate like, oh, that actually transacted to X amount of dollars in revenue. But it's that goodwill. It's just furthering that community element and building into the community. I think that's a thing that a lot of business owners, they always want to know the ROI. And I think it's very important. Not every business has the money just to fork out to be involved in everything. Because the 4th of July parade, getting a float and all that is sometimes expensive, but he leveraged the community. So when we did that parade, it was like somebody's trailer that was a regular there that owned that trailer. And it was like a tractor trailer, right? So then I remember many years that we would go, and the night before the 4th of July parade, his own customers would go and decorate the float. Like, it was a community thing. It was like him and his team, and he's paying his team. Like, he built such a community, like, culture there with the donut shop that we all felt like we wanted to support, and we wanted to see Christie's Donuts grow more. And then we were all in the parade the next day together. I mean, there was many years, either I was in the parade for Little League, like playing Little League, or I was in the parade with Christie's Donuts. Yeah. And we were advertising for him, but yet we weren't getting paid. We were his customers. And so it attests to like really driving that community element and building that great connection with not only your physical community, but also your customers, and building that community within the business.
Yeah, the invisible ROI.
Yeah,
invisible ROI. There is ROI, and there is goodwill. It just maybe not as A to B as you would transactional as you would.
Yeah, not every piece of advertising that you do should have analytics attached with like, what's the ROI here? Some of it is just it's non-quantifiable ROI, which is like that brand or that goodwill that you're doing for the community.
Yeah.
And with GoFresh, we did a lot of that during COVID, of donating thousands of meals to different hospitals and things like that. And like, did we make money on that? Hell no. But we were also in a position to be able to bring value to the community and help the community. Yeah. And people still talking about that, like, oh, I remember when you did that thing at like Doctors, or you did that thing at Kaiser, or I'm blanking on the one that's in Turlock. Emmanuel, like I remember, like I worked there, like Cassie being in nursing school. She's like, yeah, because one of her programs was at doctors, and she's like, yeah, I mentioned to them like, oh yeah, at the time my boyfriend owned this company GoFresh. Like, oh, I know GoFresh. They gave us a bunch of meals. Like we love them. Like they're so nice. Like doing those things like. Those really do come back, and they do. Like I'd much rather be known not because of a great product, but because of great customer service and that I serve the community. I want to make sure that people in the community know who I am. And I think one of the challenging parts is as you grow, because we had multi locations, as we grew into other communities, it was hard to scale that. But like that thing alone probably had the greatest ROI of like being a part of the community out of any activity that we did, like social ads, everything. The best thing was us being involved in the community and people knowing that we're not just a business here, but we're really a part of the community. And every city that we went into, we made it a point to be a part of the community, to partner up with other local businesses, to be involved in the fairs that are going on around there, like the street fairs, like farmers markets. Like we always got involved in every city. Even like when we opened Pleasanton, obviously I was from that area, so I knew a little bit more about it. But like 6 months before we even opened, we started getting involved in the community. We started partnering up with gyms, and we started going to like farmers markets and local community events because we wanted people to know who we were the day we opened.
Yeah.
And day one we sold out. I had a record day, and it was like a lot of that was that goodwill that we did with the community.
Yeah, and I think what that does is when you have impactful giving that gets seen, because I know that there's always a balance between not every generous act needs to be seen.
Yeah.
Some does, some doesn't, right? The reason that it hits so hard and it creates such wave sometimes is we all know within ourselves, there's a reason that we take notice when someone does remarkable giving, because we know deep down ourselves, like, man, I really need to step it up in whether it's this much or that much that you can do. It touches something inside of us where it's built into our DNA to be generous, and it creates a life worth living. But I'm gonna take a pause on the donut timeline, and we're going to fast forward to bodybuilding, Billy. And previous to bodybuilding, Billy was in basketball. He had a stint in network marketing. He had an exit in solar. So you got to touch several different industries. You kind of found yourself in the Central Valley, really digging into fitness. Kind of walk us through the genesis of GoFresh and kind of coming out of your time in bodybuilding.
Yeah, so really the bodybuilding came around, like I was working out, obviously always an athlete. So I was working out, and I wasn't working at the time. I had all the money that I needed in the world to chill. Yeah. Which was a weird spot to be in. And I think a lot of times we want to like jump into the next thing, but like what I really realized is that I just was missing like the competition. And not necessarily saying in business that you're always in competition, but just that thing that you can actually see you growing in, right? And I was like, man, I want something else. And at the time, Instagram was really popping off. This was like 2012. The early days of Instagram, I feel like were really driven on the back of fitness. Like we had Shreds, we had, the Joey Swolls of the world, Devin Physique, some of those guys that really built a brand for themselves early. And I think Shreds was one of the brands that was driven from like the virality of early Instagram, right? And so I was seeing all these fitness guys. I was following a lot of them, and I was seeing them compete, and I just didn't know how to do it. And then all of a sudden one day I got a friend request from a buddy of mine that I grew up with in the Bay Area. And I was like, dude, like, what happened to you? He used to be just a short, chunky kid. And also he was like shredded, and I was like, dude, how does he do this? And so that's kind of where the inkling of like, I can do this. I know somebody that could do it. And he's like, yeah, bro, there's competitions all over. And so I started training, just really fell in love with the grind of like, man, like every day I can actually physically get better. And I love weights because it's like, I don't look like I love weights as much anymore, but like you could do one day.
They still love you.
Yeah. Like one day you're doing 75s, and like literally like at the end of the week you can be doing 80s. And you're like, damn, like I grew. And it's very easy to see growth. So it's easy to get addicted to fitness growth, right? And so really got heavy into that. I started working with a local trainer. She was great, and she kind of got to the point that she's like, look, I don't know how to work with male athletes. And she wasn't really doing it. She a phenomenal individual, still a great person to this day. But she's just like, I don't work with guys normally. Like, I took you on because like you're local and you were cool. Like, I wanted to help you out. But she's like, you really need to work with a guy. And so she introduced me to a gentleman by the name of Ariel Alberto, who better known as Cuts on Instagram, one of the now top bodybuilding coaches in the world, especially on the men's physique and class of physique side. And he's out of the Bay Area, phenomenal individual. And what I loved about it, and the reason I give so much context to the early part of the story was he is really the person that inspired me to eventually start GoFresh. And the reason was a lot of fitness coaches, they don't want to teach you. They want to just tell you what to do. He taught me. And when I asked him questions, he would answer them with like detailed answers, not just like, because I said so, which is, believe it or not, how a lot of trainers will tell you. They don't really know why they're telling you this. It's a lot of passed down knowledge. And Cuts was extremely knowledgeable and willing to share that with me. And so I'm a guy that loves learning, and what you don't know, but you can learn, right? And so he started educating me and got me excited about like food is fuel, and not just like the concept of food is fuel, but like really how food is fuel. And not every piece of food is fuel for your body, and every body is different. And so I really fell in love with nutrition, and like, dude, it's a freaking science, man. Like, okay, I'm sitting at 200 and I'm eating this. If I tweak this, this, and this, I can go up to 205. Or if I tweak this and this, I can go down to 195. Like, I learned how much of a math equation it is with nutrition. And I just fell in love with it, man. And really what even led me into that was when I was in Solar, I was on the road all the time. I'm eating McDonald's. I used to buy a 4-pack of Red Bulls every day. And I'm just smashing them down. And there was one day I was driving back from the Bay Area into the Valley. I was caught in traffic, and I looked at my passenger seat, and I had McDonald's on the ground, like in and out in my car seat, like a bunch of empty cans of Red Bulls, like, just lining my passenger seat. And I was like, I think it was like 24 at the time. And I was like, I feel like crap. Like, this is not the way I should be living. I mean, I knew I was quote unquote getting older, but I was like, this ain't like how I should be feeling in my 20s. Like, this ain't right. If I didn't have those Red Bulls and coffee, I just wasn't getting through the day. And that's where it really like, I was like, there's got to be something that I'm doing wrong. And it was apparent that it was nutrition. And so that's what led me into all of this. And so as Ariel helped me progress through my competitive journey through bodybuilding, which was really men's physique. I want to be respectful of bodybuilding. I was not a bodybuilder. I did not wear posing trunks. I wore board shorts. It was easy. I didn't train legs. And yeah, so Ariel really inspired me to get into that. And I realized, like, dude, in my mind, I've unlocked like the fountain of youth. Because I don't think the fountain of youth is really just like longevity. I think that's important, but it's the quality of life that you live in your time here on earth.
It's the present. It's your present energy.
Yeah. I mean, there are people that will be like, oh, well, my uncle lived to be 105 and he smoked and drank every day. And it's like, yeah, but like, did he really live a great life, right? Like a quality of life. And I want to live a great quality of life. And, something that happened when my dad passed away is my dad was the most healthy person. He wasn't like macro healthy. He was healthy in the sense of organic foods, didn't eat anything processed. And when my dad passed away, he passed away due to mesothelioma, which is a cancer that's caused by asbestos, because he was a contractor. The doctor told me, he said, the reason that we were able to operate on your dad, he was the oldest person to get the surgery, and it was a 13-hour surgery from start to finish, which is extremely long and can be very taxing on the body. He said, the reason that we were able to do the surgery on your dad was because of how he ate. Being healthy doesn't necessarily always prevent problems, but it can help you recover from them and be able to handle it in that time. He said, normally your dad would have only had a few months to live, but because he was actually able to have the surgery because of the health of his body, he was able to be given 4 more years. Wow. So it's like, health doesn't always prevent, but health can also help you in those situations when you do get it. We haven't found a cure to cancer or a preventative way of cancer. Now, there are ways to minimize cancer, but like both my parents had cancer, and the reason that they were able to not only have surgery, but recover from that surgery was due to their health. So health is just so critical. So when I really got into this, I was like, man, I need to help people. And clearly we have an issue. I think at the time Maestro was voted the 5th most unhealthy city in the country. So, really all of this was me realizing like, damn, we're in a problem. And we, now 9 years later, we're in a worse problem as a country. And it is all revolving around health. Like, still to this day, I eat pretty much like a bodybuilder. I don't eat as much calories, but I still eat turkey, rice, broccoli, low carb, higher carbs, but even, everything's not processed. Like, it's still healthy because bodybuilding wasn't the reason they ate healthy. I was the reason that I ate healthy. And there's a lot of people that do bodybuilding and they got into it for I don't want to say the wrong reasons, because whatever you got into it was your reasons, But I think a lot of people need to realize that the nutritional side is not because you're just a bodybuilder. It's because that's the way you need to live. Like, you need to eat whole foods, healthy foods. Like, much like Joe Rogan preaches, like, you predominantly, most of your food should be vegetables.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be carbs and proteins. It should be vegetables. And I think we've gotten into this world that we want pills and we want instant gratification. And don't get me wrong, there is a dark side of bodybuilding with steroids and all that. But like, at the foundation of it, people are still eating good, you know? And if we really went to that simplistic way of eating, bro, like, life changes. Like, I don't get bothered by eating plain ground turkey. Dude, I feel freaking great. I don't have to worry about, like, why did I wake up feeling like crap today? I know if I ate some cookies last night, there's a likelihood I'm gonna wake up like feeling like crap. So it allows predictability too with health. So all of these things led into why I eventually started GoFresh. Was really, I just felt like I had found the thing and I needed to tell more people about it.
Got it. So if I'm hearing you right too, so your dad, and it sounds like maybe you guys grew up in a home too where he was kind of living the example too, like eating organic foods, going to the health food stores. I can give testament to my grandma who survived having breast cancer for 14 years, and she went above and beyond to get the alfalfa pancakes and just a lot of stuff that's more common now, but like was harder reaching, and you had to go to like weird offshoot. Bay
Have Whole Foods.
Bay Area health food stores. So it sounds like your dad you already grew up in an example where health is wealth, right? And then having your coach like really lean in and not just tell you, hey, you need to eat healthy, but here's the reasons why and the science behind it and how you're going to feel. And then also understanding like what you unlocked, which is, hey, if I understand these numbers and I understand my body and what to do, I unlock a huge quality of life. So I know GoFresh had its own.
Hold on one second. I want to add one thing, which is that I think sometimes people hear me talk and I'm so like casual about like, yeah, just do it. Let me be very clear. My sisters were raised in a completely different household. My dad didn't get healthy till I was pretty much born. He got into just started learning more about all of it. But one of the big things that I think I have an advantage over so many people, and this is for sure a privilege on my side, which is my parents never fed me crap. If you were raised eating Fruit Loops and all that stuff, bro, changing your habits are very difficult. Talk to anybody that's quit smoking. Talk to anybody that's quit drinking. Those are very addictive things, and it's challenging. You got to understand what is more addictive than any of those is sugar. And so if you've been like, you see it, you go to Walmart or in any grocery store really, and look at the cart in front of you for a family, it's full of crap. So if you've been raised eating crap, it's going to be challenging. But I promise you the rewards on the other side of breaking those habits are going to just unlock so much benefit for you. But you have to preference it with like, it's going to be hard. And I think people drastically underestimate the difficulty of changing your eating habits. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they have built such a foundation of eating crap, not their fault, right? They were fed it by their parents. And so if you want to have success, you're going to have to go through some real challenges to change your eating habits. So for me now, I can sit here and say, oh, it's so easy, but I've been doing it for now 11 years. Like, it's cake for me to eat healthy because all I know is eating healthy. But there was a stint I had basically from the time that I graduated high school to the time that I started eating healthy, about a 6-year stint that I ate like crap. And those first few months were so challenging. But I vividly remember the day I started eating healthy. It was the day of the Super Bowl. And I had a bunch of friends over. And like literally the end of the Super Bowl game, I was like, yo, you guys want any of this? And it was like all my crap, like sitting on the counter. And you know, some of my friends took some barbecue sauce or whatever. And then I took a garbage can and I just swiped it all in the garbage can. Like, I had to eliminate it. Now I can have it in my house and I have no problem, but I had to eliminate it. So if you want to eat healthier, that's my one preference. So I just wanted to hit that because sometimes people hear eating healthy is so easy. And a lot of social media influencers kind of make it like that, but they don't address the challenges, which are the addiction to sugar that we have.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect spot to kind of walk into my next question for Billy, which was, because of that answer, right? Like that eating healthy is not simple, or that's like the main excuse, like it's more expensive or it's not easy or it's not enjoyable. It's hard to make it a habit, right? You rolled out and started GoFresh with your now ex-wife, Naomi, right? So I'd like you to talk a little bit about maybe take 4 to 5 minutes and talk about how GoFresh got started, the rise of GoFresh, the realizations, what you would have done differently, and then ultimately the pivot, because obviously now that you're not doing GoFresh, and that was really part of your impact and your vision kind of going forward. Walk me through the story, what would have been done different, and just some lessons for people to know when they really take on the undertaking of being in the food industry.
Yeah, man. What would I do differently? So much. And you know, a lot of it, it's like in the moment, you know, you think you're doing the right thing, and
Sure.
and you know, you don't know what you don't know, right? And having never done that, I think the biggest thing is preparation. And like, if you talk to me now, I mean, you know me better than most. Preparation's a huge deal for me. Like, preparing to do things is going to minimize time and and definitely increase the likelihood of success. And so I think the biggest thing was the idea was there. We didn't have a plan to get to where we wanted to go. We knew where we were going, but like the plan wasn't really drawn out. So it was like, let's start. Oh, we need a bigger facility. Let's get a bigger facility. There was not much preparation. It was very emotional reactions to like, oh shoot, we're really busy where we're at. We need to get a new spot, or we need to grow. And obviously you were involved in the last facility we got, but we did it. I don't want to say long before we needed it, but we were much more prepared in getting the building, doing the build out, getting it launched than we were the first one. And ultimately, you know, my budget that I had for the first building ended up ballooning and more than doubling, because I didn't understand what needed to go into this building. I thought this was a restaurant, so it could be a restaurant again. Well, it turned out none of their plumbing was done right. And so because of my emotion that I had, is I jumped into the building really quick instead of, you know, having an inspector come in, check it out, going in, you know, taking tours with a contractor to actually look and evaluate what I might need, because I didn't know, right? And so it ended up costing us 11 months worth, or 12 months ultimately, from time of signing to opening. And it realistically could have been probably 3 months, because if I had just prepared. And if I had, another big one is if I had seeked out experience knowledge. And I didn't do that till about 8.5 months in, when I sat down with the owner of Skewers, Brad Murad, and like, bless his heart, I'm forever thankful for him sitting me down, and he put me on game. And I was like, if I had had that meeting prior to taking over that building, I probably wouldn't have taken over that building. I would have known what I was looking for. I would have known how to deal with the health department. And so be willing to ask people for help, and be clear, because at that point I knew what I needed to ask Brad. I'm 8.5 months into this damn thing. Like, I know what I don't know now. I think it's really be honest and vulnerable when you go in for that advice, because that's going to help speed up the whole process. So yeah, that's really what I would have done different, is preparation and asking for assistance. And I think that all kind of comes up in the preparation period, because when you prepare, you now can identify like what you don't know. Like, you know what, like, what if this, what if that? Be willing to go on Google, and, you know, problems with opening a restaurant, be willing to go dive in, because that 2 days or 3 days that you spend investigating and preparing will drastically speed up the likelihood of success, and decrease the amount of time that it takes to have success. So I know that was one of your questions. I know you had a few questions.
Yeah. So, and we'll just stop right there for 1 second. So if we're gleaning kind of what Billy just said right now, it seems like he had 3 things that he would have done differently. One being having a bigger vision for where GoFresh was ultimately going to go, because then you can strategically reverse engineer the steps that it takes to get there. So I think a lot of times we jump into something like, hey, that sounds cool, let's do it, right? And sometimes it works out. Sometimes you throw gum together and the house still works, right? But a lot of times it doesn't. So, and you have to pivot and change. And then the second part is that you can't be afraid to reach out to mentors. So maybe actually finding people in a similar space or the same space as you that have already done what you want to do, because they'll have already paid for the lessons. Yeah. That, you know, and they're more than happy to share with you their scars and their wounds, and where they lost $500,000 or could have avoided this, or not been backed up for 10 months, because someone that's actually been through it has experienced knowledge, not just, they didn't just read a book, right? So I think the combination of that, and then doing your own internet research and reaching out where you can, is helpful. And then the third thing being mentors, preparation, and the vision. Yeah.
And I think on the vision side too, you know, I didn't know what this was going to become. And I think I didn't know we were going to get to as many locations as we did, or volume that we did. it was really like one location, let's do $1 million a year. And then all of a sudden it just like ballooned way past that. And I don't think I had the plan in place to do that. And I think it's really important to look at like, where do you want to be in 5-10 years? And you know, like, look, like, I'll be honest, man, success sometimes comes out of nowhere, and like you know, it ends up being bigger than you expected. And that's fine. But I think it is really important to kind of look at like, what is your expectations from this? Because I know people that are single location operators that are like content with just being that single one. And they're like, that's all I want. Like, they really just wanted the freedom of being their own boss, but they don't mind basically the confinement of a job in essence. Right. And like, that's okay. Like, you need to know yourself. And I think I got to know myself a lot through GoFresh. But I didn't really realize like how big I wanted to grow this at the beginning. And I think if I had sat down and actually like marinated on it, I would have realized like, yo, I'm going to do this a lot bigger than like my initial thought of like, let's just get one location open.
And to stop you right there too, like the one thing, and I just know from our own conversations, is that you ultimately had to pivot from GoFresh and had to liquidate some things. But ultimately the best thing that could have happened would be to sell the business. What would you have done differently with GoFresh specifically to be able to sell it?
Yeah.
To be able to sell it effectively for a good multiple that could have handed off if you were deciding to pivot.
Yeah. Rather than, I mean, we ultimately liquidated the business. And when I say liquidated, we sold contracts, we sold everything. So in essence, we kind of sold the business.
The book of business.
But yeah, we sold more of the book of the business and equipment than we did really. Like, it ended up being, you know, a net profit overall. And it was awesome to be able to sell those contracts. But if I could have gotten significantly more, I think this is also where you need to be clear in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, okay, what is the exit strategy?
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of times people are like, what's your number? Like, a number doesn't fucking matter. Like, excuse my language, I don't know if we're allowed to swear.
Yeah. We are obviously allowed to swear on here unless we're talking to a guest that doesn't want to.
Yeah. So like, I think if I had prepared for like okay, like, how do we get to there? I think a lot of times people think about just the top line revenue goal, but I think we've got to really look at the profitability and like drive metrics around profitability. And I think that is probably one of the biggest mistakes that I made, was I was like, top line. But top line doesn't always make it a viable business. Just because you make 5 million, but you spend 10, like, that's not a profitable business, nor is it a viable business to sell. And so I think if I had focused on, there's two things, definitely profitability, but then two, scalability. And scalability, one variable in this whole equation is me. And when I talk about these challenges that I went through GoFresh, like, I'm gonna be very brutally honest. In the period of starting GoFresh, the first 12 months before actually physically opening our first retail location, there was probably 30 plus meal prep companies that opened and closed in this area in that period. The reason is health department didn't know what the hell to classify us as. So I had to create the classification here in the county. I had to go through a lot of challenges, and we had to educate customers. We had to, like, we were one of 2 meal prep companies in the whole state of California at the time that we launched. The other one was in the Bay Area, very small. They're still around to this day, which is awesome for them. But what I realized was I am willing to persevere the most. And so one of the benefits of that was I was able to grow the business. But one of the challenges is I put myself in, I was the glue in too many spots. And I think that when you are truly scaling a business, like, if you are scaling the business, that's a problem. That is not a sellable business, because then they have to buy you. And then when you sell the business, most people, in the concept of selling the business is like, I'm out. Like, I'm not working there anymore. The problem is if you are the glue that holds the business together, I don't care who it is, they're going to know that you're the glue, and they're going to want to buy you in the business and be like, okay, well, we're going to keep you for 5 years. You're going to be put on salary, and now you're a job. Now you're an employee, and that's not much fun. So really moving yourself out of the business, working to eliminate yourself from the beginning is really key. Now, people hear that and they get the wrong concept, and they're like, oh, I got to pay somebody to do what I'm doing. No. You need to work yourself out of the business. It's not today. It's not tomorrow. It may be 6 months from now, you're going to take that off your plate. 6 months from then, you're going to take that plate, and you keep, as you grow, you're removing yourself to ultimately where you're just an operator. But if you are the glue that solves every problem or holds every problem together, you're not a sellable business.
You're not going to be inseparable from the business. So kind of back to the one of the 3 points that we made, which was vision. If in vision you had created, what the envisioned exit strategy would look like, then there would have been graduating points along the journey where you were unlocking freedom and unlocking the ability to hand over the keys of the kingdom to somebody else, and the business just
Yep.
churns right along. And I think what's tough is when we have something that's so close to our heart and so close to our impact and our mission, and you probably felt this way with GoFresh, is that you want to be the glue. You want to be the glue that it's the glue that becomes inseparable when you're trying to sell, but you also become the glue that resists, opportunity.
And that's most small businesses challenges is the owner.
Yeah.
It's not the business model. It's not the product. It's not the service that they offer. It's them.
Yeah.
I mean, we have it at the agency that someone will be like, well, you can create the content. I'm going to tell you what's wrong with it, but I'm going to post it. And it's like, bro, like you are the business owner. Like go run your business. Don't run your marketing. That's what you hired us for. And they want to micromanage so much. And it is really like, and I don't want to wrong anybody because I think we all kind of go through that mindset of like, it's mine. I want to, like, it's my baby. But like at some point, like even, I mean, I'm not a parent, so I can't necessarily completely stand by this, but like I'm sure you can, is like, you got to let them fall. Like you can't wrap them in bubble wrap and like prevent them from ever injuring themselves. Like sometimes you got to touch the pot that's hot to know it's
guided danger.
Yeah. And you have to let your team, if you want freedom, and I didn't learn this really till location number 2, was like, you got to let your team fail. You got to let your team solve problems. And there's so much, I get it. It's quicker for you to solve the problem, but you're taking it away from them. And all you taught them was to go to you, to be the problem solver, instead of teaching them like, okay, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And you know what? They may F up, but like, let them mess up, because if they mess up, they're going to learn, because then you can go back to them and be like, all right, so you messed up. Let's go through your thought process. Like, why did you do this, this, and this? What could you have done differently? And, like what I'm talking about right now is like reflection on things I did 8.5, 9 years ago, mistakes I made. Well, I learned a lot through those mistakes. So if you prevent your team from making those mistakes, you're preventing them from growing. So you want this badass team, and we wronged so many managers and employees because they did something stupid, but it was like, then you prevent them from ever making a mistake again. So in the mistake that they made, you didn't work with them, you wronged them. And instead of like allowing that mistake to be something that can cause momentum for them to grow, we just wronged them or fire them. And obviously not every mistake is a teaching lesson. You do need to reprimand people, but a lot of these lessons are lessons that you can help them grow through and help them become better, which is only going to help your team get better. Like you have to treat new employees and businesses like they're infants. Like you got to understand that there's a growing curve. And if you're not willing to work with them, I know the easy solution, the quick solution is just to do it. But like, yes, that's a quick solution today, but that's going to be the solution that prevents you from growing tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to recognize, guys, Billy for taking GoFresh as far as he did. It was a big impact driver for his heart. I don't think Billy ever thought that he was actually going to get away from that business, because it tied into his real care for people, which is he wanted to see people be healthier, but ultimately, like, that's just a gateway drug to a whole better life. So I just want to applaud you, man, for taking GoFresh, blood, sweat, and lots of tears, kind of getting it to where it was. Multiple locations, lots of employees, even people that had left his company always still spoke well about him. Just a testament to, you took it down the road. And there was a lot of points where Billy, when the going got tough, could have just been like, hey, you know what, just like any other meal prep company, I'm out of this. And it wouldn't have been that hard to walk away, but he persevered forward. And ultimately everything is, life is always teaching us, right? And kind of preparing us for the next level we're going to be at. And so with what Billy's doing now, GoFresh was the university that he needed to graduate from, to have the raving success that he has now. So I will ask one more kind of more deep personal question before we maybe finish up on a positive note. And that is, you did start GoFresh with your ex-wife, Naomi. Yep. It was a passion project for both you guys. You guys put more than, a fair amount of energy and sweat and just effort into making it what it was. As of today, you guys are no longer together. Was the realization of GoFresh and the ultimate kind of dismemberment of that vision going forward, was that a catalyst in also the end of that marriage? for you guys along
That's a hard one.
along with other things?
Yeah, man. I think, I'm happy there was no bitterness. We ended it very amicably. I think it's hard running a business with your spouse. Like, you do get lost in the sauce. You know what I mean? And this is one thing I think that a lot of entrepreneurs need to understand. Like, a lot of entrepreneurs want another entrepreneur as a spouse, but like, the pedigree of that individual, not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. Majority of people aren't meant to be an entrepreneur. My fiance is an entrepreneur, and she is an incredible entrepreneur, but the culture of what she was raised in was entrepreneurship. My ex-wife was not raised around that. Her parents came from, a more employee mindset. And so when you're raised around people that work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, have normal jobs, like, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to discredit that at all, but not everybody is like, I mean, I've worked for entrepreneurs. I started working at 9 years old. Like, all I knew was like, go out and earn, you know what I mean? And I knew from a very early age that entrepreneurship was my vehicle.
Yes.
My dad was an entrepreneur. Well, he owned his own business. Both my sisters went into owning their own businesses. Like, I saw that as the path. And so for me, I didn't know anything else. My dad also worked all the time. So I came from a culture like it's normal, right? And, I think I'll take it a little outside of business is like, and I a good friend of mine, I just had a conversation. He's much younger and about the same age that he is about when I met my ex, which is like, and I don't want to talk poorly on her, but like, when you see red flags, and when I say red flags, it doesn't necessarily mean like those are toxicity things or like they're a cheater or anything like that. Red flags are just things that don't align with your values. And once again, not a bad thing. Like, it's okay that you and I have difference of opinion. That's fine. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. It's just we got a different opinion. But when it comes to like a true relationship, I think we need to acknowledge those. And like, when core fundamental issues of like having kids or, like, what do you see as like the lifestyle?
Entrepreneurship versus
like, are you okay with me working all the time? Mm-hmm. Are you okay with me like being on vacation and like having to have an emergency call? Like, those are when you own a business, you are never done working.
No.
Like, when you leave, even with the time that you leave the office, doesn't mean you're done working.
No.
You go home thinking, because if you do not grow this business or you do not make payroll this week, it's not your bills don't get paid. It's like you and your 60 plus employees do not get paid. And that was the peak of GoFresh was 60, I think we had 67 employees. So it's like, dude, that's a lot of people that depend upon me. That is pressure. And so if you don't understand that concept, like, and you don't have those types of conversations, like, bringing that type of person into a business with you can be a recipe for disaster. And I think that it's having those, I didn't have those tough conversations early on. And so then when we got into the business, we got locked in on just like the business. And she left the business multiple times throughout that period. I was the one that persevered through the whole thing. And I appreciate her support throughout the business. But ultimately, really, when you think about it, it's like we kind of got caught into the momentum of the business, and that's what propelled our relationship forward. And it was like inevitable, like, well, we've been together for a while, we might as well get engaged. Well, we've been together, we might as well get married. And it was a lot of the momentum of the business that pushed our relationship forward. And like, nothing but respect for her, but like and she'll admit this too, like, we ignored those things in the beginning because it was comfortable being in a relationship instead of really diving into it. And I think that's what has allowed me to be so confident in the relationship I had, is I had those tough conversations. And so now when I talk to young people, I see them getting caught up into those same things. Like, but she's awesome, she's great, she's this, but then there's like, she doesn't like me as an entrepreneur, she doesn't think like personal development's important, she doesn't like going to these, or she doesn't like that I go to these events.
You can kind of
those
see
are red flags.
You can see the crossroads.
Yeah.
The crossroads that they're going to come to. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like if GoFresh was the child between you both, in essence, right? Once the child's gone and it's empty nesters and you guys are looking at each other, if that was the momentum of your relationship, it forces you to face each other, and that may not be pretty.
Yeah,
at that time when
the dust settled,
when the space is there to actually like look at each other in the eyes and have the conversations to be had, you guys maybe weren't heading down the same path anymore.
Exactly. And that's what we did realize, is that we had grown apart. And I think the best thing that we did was we ended it quickly. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I'm very cautious to talking about divorce, because everybody's situation is different. I don't want somebody to hear me say like, we ended it quickly, that's the way you need to go. Because like there maybe is somebody out there with a family that's dealing with some challenges, and like, dude, you're going to go through freaking challenges. Like you're going to go through challenges. But like when you can really like sit down and look and be like, look, we've grown apart. You want this, I want that. Like there's no bridge to come back.
Yeah.
We're on different sides of the, of the water, and we don't want to build a bridge to go across. Then like it's over, right? And like when you can eliminate all emotion and just think from a logical place, it's easy to make that decision, And I'll commend her. Like we both eliminated emotion, and we're like, okay, this is what I want. This is what you want. Like you're not willing to budge. I'm not willing to budge. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Like let's end this now, rather than dragging this through the mud and we despise each other. And that's where a lot of these divorces get messy, is like they weren't willing to have the hard conversation when they needed to.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, and not saying that we could have ever saved the marriage or anything, but like we might have never even gotten married. We might have broken up very early on if we had had that tough conversation early. But we get lost in that like, that honeymoon phase, and you ignore a lot of these things that are like, yeah, like she's great, but that doesn't align. And I think, when I went back into the dating field, that was it. Like I'd go on a date, and like, I literally would tell them, I'd be like, look, I'm going to tell you anything you want. Like you want to ask me a question, I will answer it. Like I'd much rather get it out today, and you decide whether you like me or not today, rather than wasting on a second, third, fourth, fifth date. Like, let's get it out today.
Yeah.
And so I'm brutally honest, but I was like brutally honest and asking them questions.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about your ex-husband. Like, is he still around?
And I think guys, that's another recipe for success. When I married Jessica, I had finally gotten to a point where if I'm gonna date, hey, I'll just be straightforward. These are the skeletons in the closet. This is my failures. This is my successes. And I think when you give someone a chance to like the authentic you, it's just beautiful, man, because then if they actually fall in love with that person, you don't have to keep up playing the game of being the person that you had to pretend to be that they liked. And we can only remember our lines for so long.
Exactly. I think when I went to dating, I wasn't dating to date. I was dating to find my next wife.
Yeah.
Or to find my permanent wife, like my forever wife. And so I went in with that intention, and I realized so much of what I had made mistakes on is like, dude, I didn't address any of this. I was like, we like fitness. We like, we got similar friends. We like similar music. Cool. Let's do it. And it's like, bro, those are just, and I'm obviously very much shortchanging the reason we started dating. Let me be clear. But like, we get lost into that like romantic phase. And then all of a sudden, like when the honeymoon phase is over, something like, I can't spend the rest of my life with this person. Like, I'm actually kind of bored, or I'm this or I'm that. And all of a sudden, like once you've gotten used to each other, you start seeing all these things like, I don't really like this. And I think that people wouldn't waste so much freaking time dating if they just asked the questions that mattered most to them in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about God. Let's talk about, challenges you face. How do you feel about entrepreneurship? People hear entrepreneur and they're like, oh, so much money. And it's like, but are you willing to deal with what comes with that money? Which is a lot of fucking hours. Me working all the time. I mean, Gary calls me at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm answering the freaking phone. Client calls us at 10 o'clock. I'm answering the call. Like, are you good with that? You know what I mean? And like, obviously there's boundaries you have to set, but like, are you good with that? And I think those are all things that are really important to address and talk about early. Then you can decide, like, am I about to waste the next 6 months just to realize then I don't like them? Or like, let's just get it out like date 1, date 2, date 3. Like, I want to get to know you. Like my fiance and I, she's very much the same way. Like, she was married previously, and we both were like drilling each other. And we wanted to know, like what's up? Like, and I think that sets the foundation of communication being essential in your relationship. And I can tell you that in my past marriage, that was not it. And I will take responsibility for not setting that up, because I didn't ask the questions that mattered most in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I was allowed myself to get so lost in the sauce.
And knowing you as a friend, since the pivot of GoFresh, the ending of the marriage, the work that you've done on yourself, the returning to church and your faith, I think there's just a lot of elements of alignment, of kind of creating alignment with yourself. I think you kind of made a full circle moment. I want to just kind of applaud you for kind of making some 180, like it's an internal 180 sometimes. So that way that if you actually meet the right person, you're the right person for them.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot too, is people are trying to date when they shouldn't be dating.
Yeah.
Like, go work on yourself, man. And I think I had a buddy call me the other day and asked me about, he had been previously married, and he's with a woman now, incredible woman, and he's thinking about asking the question. And there was some concerns of his, not with the relationship, but like, what if I mess up again? Like, what if I get divorced? Because nobody, let's be honest, nobody wants to be that dude that's like, yep, I'm on my third, fourth, fifth marriage. Like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody wants to be that person. And he asked me some questions about like, well, how did I know? And I told him, I was like, well, these are mistakes that I made in previous relationships. And so what I decided to go into was like, one, I want to be 100% like ready myself. I was like, I need to know that I was in that good place. But two, like I had to ask her those questions. I had to see, like, is she willing to deal with challenges? She's willing to deal with when there is a problem that we work through. How's our communication? Like I had to look at those fundamental things. Like I don't really care, like whether you listen to music or any of that kind of stuff. It's like, can you deal with challenges? And I told him, I said, the final one, I said, this is the most important thing that was lacking in my last relationship is faith. Like we needed a relationship with God. And so I'm going to give a shout out to my man, Gary, who's behind the camera right now. He is the man that the reason, I'll say God is the reason because he put Gary in my life. And Gary was the one that, you know, like he was one of the first people that I told. I think he was the second person that I told that I was getting a divorce. And, you know, he prayed over me that day and invited me to church that week. And it was like, you know, now, you know, a little over a year afterwards, it was the best decision that I ever made. And my wife, or my fiance, we're already married mentally. My fiance and I now, I mean, we go to church together every week. Like we pray together when we have dinners. Like faith is a major part of our relationship. And that allows us to understand when there's problems, like we don't immediately assume that they're wrong. We don't wrong each other. Like, you know, we're like, when you have God in your life, you have a way of understanding and also forgiving. And not saying that like, because God's in my life, I can go make a whole lot of mistakes and like, she's just going to forgive me. But that idea of like, you know, actually coming to your spouse and asking for forgiveness and also being forgiven is a huge deal because I'm not going to lie, man, my last relationship, there was a lot of resentment held against me because of actions that I did. And even though those actions in entrepreneurship, one of our biggest flaws is that we're doing this for our family, but we didn't really enroll our family into like what I'm doing. So my grind is my own personal belief that this is what's best for the family, but I never enrolled them into it. And I think when you have faith in your relationship, you have the willingness to communicate because it's a team and you're working together with God and you're praying together. You're like, there's so much concepts of community and like togetherness with faith for me, at least in my interpretation of where it's been. And so for my fiance and I now, I mean, we pray every night together. Like we're praying at dinner. We're, you know, and her family is extremely religious and so is mine. And like everything is revolving around faith and it's such an important element. And then more importantly, like church has so many resources. I know Gary was just at a couples retreat that it's not like broken couples, it's couples. It's like couples going to get stronger and to support each other and encourage each other. And like, there is an element of like family and togetherness that the church provides that I don't want to title it just church, but like faith provides that is so critical for a successful marriage. And I think that was one of the biggest things that was lacking in my relationship because that can lead into so many other things being solved because faith was at the center of our relationship. And I can wholeheartedly say now that my relationship that I'm in now is based around faith. And faith leads you to not be a cheater, not be a liar, not be a manipulative person. It really allows you to be helps you be a good-hearted person, right? And so I think that's one of the most important things that you can have in your relationship is faith.
Yeah, no. And I will second that in a major way. Because I think kind of going back to those core issues is that if you're not aligned with, what you think, beyond the physical, if you're not aligned with what you really truly believe is going on with life, there's just going to be a lot of disconnect. It's gonna the way that you deal with things is going to be very different. I understand everyone has different temperaments, but like you said, like having a core faith that's shared between you two is kind of like our relationship with God.
No.
I would say that a relationship with God at one point is from being saved, but then it's continually being worked on. Same things for our marriage. A marriage is a marriage day, and then it's a marriage that's continually being worked on, right? So it's just a never-ending progress of two like-minded people. It's a beautiful ascent as you kind of go forward in life. So I appreciate.
Sorry, one more.
Yeah.
You got me going, so I'm not gonna shut up. Sorry, Gary. I hopefully got enough camera battery to get through this. I think one thing that's really important too is like when you start dating, if you think of this like conceptually as like investing, like like when you're in a business and you put 100K into it and you're like the business is struggling, you're like, well, I'm already in it. I'm already out some money. Like, let's just keep pushing. And I think a lot of times in a relationship, that's why I'm very serious about like when I started dating again, it was like, I'm going to ask the hard questions like from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Because next thing you know, you're like, well, we've been dating for 3 months. Well, we've already been doing it for 3 months. Let's see where it goes. And the next thing you know, you're engaged, you're married, you're like, and then you're miserable. And like when you stop and you think, you're like, damn, I'm miserable. But you were miserable really month 3, but you're like, well, I'm already in it 3 months, so let's just keep rolling it. When the reality is if you had just acknowledged it and had those hard-hitting questions early, you would have been able to move on. And like Alex Hormozi talks a lot about this, and Layla too. It's like I was going, they said they were going on dates like let's figure it out, like date 1, like do I like you or not? Like, okay, perfect. Like just let's flip through cards. But people want to like, well, maybe we can see where if we go on 10 dates, maybe I'll like this person. Like, dude, no. Like, and don't just date them because they're hot or, you have like one similarity, because like, if you're not aligned on religion or politics or what you like to do, or like like if you love to party and they don't, like, this is going to be a problem. And at some point you're gonna be like, dude, like I like to freaking party. I want to go party. And then that's going to cause animosity in a relationship. It's going to destroy it. Like, be aligned early. I mean, I proposed to my fiance 9 months into dating. Like, a lot of people are like, dude, that's hecka quick. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like,
not when you take marriage seriously from the forefront. If you guys are jumping in, acknowledging the serious questions, it doesn't take that long to be in an alignment to want to lock in the relationship the right way.
And my fiance, drop dead gorgeous. Like, I am so in love with her physically. Like, yes, but like that will only get you so far.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how beautiful this person is. At some point, you're gonna hate them if you don't align on values.
Yeah.
Right. And like, I mean, my last marriage, it was like we didn't align on politics, we didn't align on religion, there was so many issues that at like the long haul, like even if we had kids, like then it comes to like, well, what religion are we putting them in? Or like, what are we going to tell them politically? Like,
it just starts everything. Everything. And when you start putting kids in the middle of it, then all of a sudden you get to the hard questions, and it's a lot stickier to get away.
You got to deal with those now. And I promise you, I know it's hard breaking up with somebody and all of that, and like it's comfortable, like just going out with this person and having some fun. But like, are you just having fun because it's like the honeymoon phase, or I actually like, damn, like I'm aligned on everything. And that's the crazy part about my fiance and I now, is like, we are truly aligned on like every aspect of our life outside of what we do for a living. Like, and even still that, she's an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, we're aligned on everything. Like, when we talk about business, like we are so in lockstep on what we do. When we talk about life, how we want to have our children, how we want to raise our children, like it's aligned. But if you look at like our families, like we were raised in very similar households with very similar like routines and habits and beliefs. Like we were raised in very similar aspects. And I think that's one thing that we really underestimate, is the importance of like the upbringing that they had. And I know for a fact, a majority of the people that I know, when they go on dates, they don't ask about that. Like, they just want to meet their parents, but it's like, tell me about your parents. Like, what was it like being like raised? Like, I know that my fiance had a father that was very similar to my dad. Was not only tough, like, but loving, but like he demands respect. Like, he wants to know, he wants a good handshake. He wants somebody that works hard. He wants somebody that's religious, that has a good faith-based belief. Like, he wants these things. And so I know when you have a dad that's like that, like what you expect from a relationship, and so I know that I align a lot with her dad because that's how my dad was. And so like when I started dating her, I was able to provide what she needed because, a lot of women are looking at their father as an example of the type of man they'd want. And so when they come from this type of household that's very similar to mine, I go, oh dude, like we're going to align like automatically. But when you come from a completely different way of living, not saying that it can't work, but like to ensure the likelihood is like coming from similarities. And some of the most successful relationships that you talk to and you ask them like, well, how was their parents versus your parents? Oh, they were super similar. You know what I mean? And like her family and I have an incredible relationship. I love her family. Her family loves me. You know, like, and it's because we're the same. Like I'm like, if you didn't know, if I wasn't white and they were Mexican, like you would think like I'm their kid, like the way that I was brought up. You know, I joke the same way. I have respect the same way. I go, you know, like there's a lot of the fundamentals that are the same because our upbringing was so similar. And so I think there's important, like the questions you aren't asking right now is the reason that your relationships aren't successful.
Yeah. And I think the kind of like one of the biggest overhauls from this whole like talk right now ends up being like, take the lessons that life is giving you. You don't have to keep taking the same class over and over again unless you want to. So I know Gary's standing behind the camera over here. You know, we're beyond the time that we had projected. So I will finish up with a few questions. Billy, I do appreciate you being super vulnerable, letting me kind of getting into your personal life. It's beautiful to see the ups and the downs and the peaks and the valley, because that's what real life really is. And that's a big thing that I want to do on this podcast is like, it's the stories that shape us, right? Like the person that you see in front of you is shaped by the stories that happen in your actual life. So I'm going to be trying to dig into people's stories to not only inspire you guys, but to give you action. So to fully recap here, I got 3 more questions for you. One being, what is, now that we are moving forward with a vision mindset and a potential exit, even if you're never going to exit, what is the 3-year vision for the companies that you have now? And what is that looking like in the next few years?
Yeah. So the agency, there's no real plans of ever selling it or, you know, franchising or anything along those lines. Really, the reason that I started was really off the inspiration of Gary Vee, creating VaynerMedia as the machine that he is able to buy and sell brands through. I had a very similar concept. My goal has always been to be an aggressive investor and entrepreneur. And so right now, really, the goal is to continue to strengthen the machine and improve the machine by adding, you know, people to the team, like such as Gary, Rafa. You know, we've got an internship program starting up here in next month. We're going to be hiring here pretty quickly because we are getting some very large accounts that we need more assistance on. So growing the team, strengthening the team out, bringing more value to the clients that we have. And it is a standalone business, right? Like I don't want it to be really like a losing business while it's just marketing for my other companies. But right now we've got Rebel with a Spoon, which is a brand that we're launching right now that we're a partner in. And so the goal is next 3 years, sell the business. There's a direct-to-consumer, do-it-yourself protein bar company. The founder of the company, Mike, has been a friend of mine for a long time, built his last protein bar company. He sold it for about 9 figures. So very successful entrepreneur, knows how to build and sell businesses. And because of his track record and having the experience that he had messing up the last business in the sense of like, you know, in the beginning of just not starting it with that intention, we are both entering this business with a clear intent of when we're going to sell and the number that we're going to sell at. So there's that. And then another project, this is kind of like public announcement number 1, is a protein peanut butter spread company, or nut butter spread company, because we have almond butter that we're going to be launching called Butterfit Co. So I'm playing around with that one, and that should be launched by later this year. So we're going to be launching that direct-to-consumer protein snack company. So
super, super exciting. And then Done For You?
Yeah, then Done For You. Done For You is another business that, you know, we can get into. That's a whole other story. Great business. So we have basically Done For You is a video editor service, but we're launching into graphic design and into virtual assistants as well. You know, long-term with that one, we're still trying to figure out the long-term opportunity that's available. A lot of that business has been disrupted due to AI, because video editing was our predominant avenue, but with some of the new generative AI tools that are coming out, we are kind of waiting to see where the dust settles on a lot of this to know the long-term direction, because what we really want is this to be a done-for-you model. And so what potentially may be the longer-term play is eliminating video editors and graphic design and creating virtual assistants that are capable of being prompt engineers. And so prompting these generative AI tools to be able to produce what you're looking for. So that's kind of where we're kind of looking at. And so it's nothing new. There's other companies that are looking at doing the similar thing. But yeah, so it's really about creating a low cost service of international talent for United States-based businesses and allowing them to accelerate with content creation.
Love it. Well, I'm really excited to see, with all the knowledge and experience that Billy has from everything he's done, like take these companies forward and do exciting things with them. So this is a part of the show that's going to be pretty standard for every single guest. So I'm just going to ask a few questions that are going to be the same on every single podcast. So one, we want to leave a learning recommendation for the audience. So that could be a book, it could be a podcast, it could be a person that you've been paying attention to. What is a good piece of knowledge that they should be checking out or that you're interested in right now?
Yeah, it's tough because there's no book that one book that fits everybody, and I'm very apprehensive to give this recommendation, but the book is incredible. Is the $100 million offer of Maestro, and the reason that I am very cautious of doing this is because it's much like Gary Vee back in the day. Like, he has become a celebrity, and in our world, everybody is so fat on information, and we're all infobesity is a reality, and mental masturbation, all that, those terminologies. It's so true. And I think if you are a direct to consumer product, B2C, whether it be coaching or a product like our service-based or product-based business, I think $100 million offer is the best book that you can read. And I'm going to absolutely put a preference to this, is that you got to read it 20 times. I'm not even exaggerating, because the development of your offer is so critical. So I've read that book, I think 7 or 8 times now. I've listened to the audiobook at least 20 to 30 times. It took me on the 8th read to finally realize what we needed to do for the agency to create the Grand Slam offer. And in the course of 6 weeks since launching that offer, the amount of opportunities that have come to us through not only ad spend, but organic content, organic referrals has been massive, because we niche down really hard and then created a stupid offer, an offer that is so good people feel stupid to say no to. But it took me that many times to figure out how to finally do that. You can't read that book once and be like, I know my offer, because you're going to test that offer and the offer is going to flop. And if you keep reading that book and keep understanding it, there's concepts that I heard the 8th time reading it that I was like, dude, is this a new chapter in the book? How did I miss this, right? And so I think that a lot of people get caught into Alex Hormozi as the celebrity, and they are not retaining the information. But Alex is an extremely talented entrepreneur. But I stopped listening to podcasts. I stopped reading other books, and I just dove into $100 million offer over and over and over again till I finally developed what I'm hoping to be our Grand Slam offer. Because Alex Hormozi talks about, all you need is one Grand Slam offer. So how many times are you willing to read that book until you find your Grand Slam offer? Because if you find that Grand Slam offer, it's going to change your business forever.
Yeah, love it. All right, so we'll include that book in the show notes, guys. Like Billy said, it's like an onion that needs to keep getting peeled back. And even Alex talks about it himself, which is that countless hours, revision after revision after revision. And when you write a book that tight, it's going to take some time to really get through. It's not going to just be a one-time read. So we'll make sure to have that in the show notes.
There's so many people excited about his next book, and I'm like, bro, you haven't even implemented his first book.
Yeah,
you're excited. It's like watching Michael Jordan's next game. That's all they're thinking about. I was like, oh, it's going to be fun to watch the next game.
It's just waiting for the next hit, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Speaking of that, we're talking about implementation. One of the biggest things that I want to have on this podcast is that people actually take action from it. Because here's the thing, we can read all the books, we can listen to all these podcasts, we can get inspired by all the one-liners that we drop here and there, right? But if I just leave you inspired and you're heading down the wrong path, I did nothing for you. So that is not my goal here. So my last question for you, Billy, is what is an action that the audience can take today from this podcast that they could implement today that would be beneficial to their life? And it could be physical, it could be mental, it could be a habit. What's one action item that you would encourage them to challenge themselves to see if they could implement in their lives over the next 30 days?
I'm going to give them 2, because the first one kind of piggies back on what we were just talking about with the book. Stop reading for volume of books and start reading for volume of impact. Meaning, if you're reading a book, I'm sorry to burst anybody's bubble, you're not implementing that book to even 5% of its potential by just reading it and then jumping on the next book.
Yeah.
You don't even give yourself time to apply the information. So I can give out a million ideas of what you need to implement today, but the reality is you're already reading books, listening to podcasts, and not implementing that information. So if I tell you something, it's just gonna be one more thing that you don't implement. So my biggest suggestion is when you're reading or you're listening to information, be willing to continue to read it till you fully understand that concept and have it implemented in your business. Because there is a trial and error period. So if you're reading a book a week, like I can't stand, no offense to anybody, I can't stand when people are posting like, I've read 52 books. Cool. So you read 52 books that you didn't implement one bit of information. You got more knowledge, but it's not applied knowledge. You don't know how to even make that work. There are a ton of people that can regurgitate information. It's all over social media. But like, is that actually impacting your business? So that's one. Number two is the best thing you can do right now is to, and I don't care where your business is at, take a day, like legitimately take a day, and don't go to the local coffee shop. Like go somewhere that is out of your element and take a notepad and journal. Like, where do I see myself in the next 5, 10 years? And I don't mean just in business, because business is important, but like one of the biggest things that I knew at the end of GoFresh was, the wheel of life has many spokes, and each spoke is a different area of your life. And when ultimately GoFresh was done and that chapter ended, I had one spoke, and that was business. And everything else, spirituality, fitness, finances, finances were all right, but like, my relationship, everything was gone because I was solely focused on one. And so when you're looking at your life in the 5, 10, 15-year lifespan, is really look at each bucket of life and go, who do I want to be? Who do I want to show up in each of those areas? And then go ferociously after becoming that person. Go read books on how to become that person. I think we get so caught up onto social media or even information and being like, I love Alex Hormozi and I'm going to be a business guy like Alex Hormozi. But like all we see is Alex on the business side. And so I think a lot of us conceptually just get caught up into, if I'm great at business, everything else is going to be fine. But it's like, find your business motivation, find your, faith motivation, find your family motivation, find these different people. Like, dude, you're one of my motivations for who I want to be as a dad. Like Cassie will attest to this, is like, I look up to you tremendously of how you're showing up for Jessica, how you're showing up for Grayson. Like, I love seeing your stories of playing with Grayson, like, but you're hitting the gym early in the morning, you're going and playing with Grayson, then you're going to work, you're reading, like you're hitting it all. So when I look at it as like a whole life, like you're somebody I look up to. But like, I can't look up to you necessarily in business because we're in completely different businesses. So I got to have some, so don't look for one mentor, look for the mentor that can help you, like grow in all those, in different areas, right? So I got my business mentor, I've got my faith mentors or inspirations, I've got my family. And so I think when you can build that vision, you can start to understand, you can take inventory of where you're actually at and go, okay, I want to be this type of father. Like, am I that guy yet? Okay, what do I need to do to be that guy? And so when you can build that vision statement out, it really makes it very easy for you to take inventory and understand where you need to work on.
Yeah, no, I love it. So thank you guys for hanging in with us today. I know that this was a little bit longer of an episode. That's what happens when you have a friendship that runs deep, when you have a lot of respect that runs deep. I really love spending time with Billy. He's a great guy to be around.
There's never a conversation we have that's under an hour, so we should have known this was going well.
No, I'm glad that we had the batteries installed at the beginning of this episode to know that we could run as far as we needed to go. But thank you guys for sticking around with us. We will be continuing to bring you guys podcasts that are interesting to listen to, stories that just really pull you in while you're driving, while you're at the gym, or if you're checking this out on video, actually, putting it to the side. I really want to help engineer change in people's lives. For me personally, and I said this even in the intro, that my grandfather was a priest, my dad was a pastor. I wasn't personally called to be in the ministry, but this is my platform for impact, and it's the main reason that I'm doing it. So I look forward to your guys' feedback. I'm here to listen. I want to just keep changing and growing, and I'm going to change with you guys as we listen to these guests, just like you guys are. So I look forward to the journey. Take care.